Honestly, one of the best RPG styles has to be isometric RPGs. I think they fit Android really well because of their graphics and how easy they are to play. In this video, we're going to take a look at the best isometric RPGs you can find on the Play Store, so make sure to leave a like and let's get started. One of the best things about this game is that it doesn't lock you into a single class. Let's talk about Rusty Axelot. This is a completely unknown game with fewer than 500 downloads on the Play Store. I'd say it's basically a dungeon crawler where your goal is to level up your character and defeat as many enemies as you can. The isometric gameplay is what really makes the game addictive. One of its most interesting features is that you can switch between characters or classes whenever you want. You don't have to spend all your time leveling up one class and then switch to another. Instead, it's like you're progressing with 4 different characters at the same time. This is definitely one of the most underrated games on our list, and it has a very unique gameplay style. Let's talk about Sea Fantasy. This game is an RPG, but at the same time it's also a fishing game. Yes, I know that doesn't sound like it makes much sense, but somehow this game manages to do it really well. The main enemies and villains are usually found in the ocean, which is why you need to use fishing mechanics to defeat them. It features a fishing system that's a bit different, almost like fighting enemies, but the most interesting part is exploring the game's open world. You can travel both with your character and with your ship. You'll explore different areas of the map and discover as much as you can. It's a very different kind of game, but it's definitely worth trying. Of course, this game couldn't be left out. It's simply one of the best ports released this year. Let's talk about Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars tells the journey of Zale and Valere, 2 solstice warriors who use the powers of the sun and the moon to fight against the monstrous creations of the evil alchemist known as the Fleshmancer. They are joined by their childhood friend Garl. I think one of the best parts of this game is how it feels like an old school RPG while still bringing a lot of new ideas. The game manages to capture that classic feeling both visually and through its gameplay, but at the same time it delivers an incredible story. The game became very successful on PC and eventually received a mobile port that honestly turned out absolutely amazing. I honestly don't even know if this game can be considered isometric because the camera is positioned very high above. Let's talk about Shadow of the Dev. This is a very simple and straightforward dungeon crawler. In the game, you'll choose between 4 different classes and characters, then enter various dungeons to level up and survive for as long as possible. Unlike the other games on our list, this one has a much higher difficulty level than usual. Even a simple rat can end up killing you in this game. It also features a much more responsive combat system that feels very similar to a Souls-like. The game doesn't bring many innovative features, but it's one of those simple experiences that works really well. This game was once considered one of the best RPGs in the world, and it became incredibly successful back in the day. Let's talk about Titan Quest. You can usually find it hidden away on the Play Store, and the game focuses on your own character that you create. The most interesting part is that you're not a legendary hero, but just a character trying to survive the end of the world during the Norse Ragnarok. That's why the game has millions of enemies for you to defeat, and it feels like the battles never end. Even though the game has a main path and a story to follow, it still gives you a lot of freedom to choose your own quests and create your character however you want. You could consider this game a true old school classic on the Play Store. This is the type of game that you probably would only discover here. Almost nobody knows that it even exists. Let's talk about LUNARLUX. After the destruction of Earth, humanity built a prosperous scientific civilization on the moon. However, the colonies are constantly attacked by the MEGS, mysterious creatures created from antimatter. Now you and your friends must defeat all of these monsters. Unlike most games on our list, which have a more medieval style, this one takes a more futuristic approach. It feels a lot like classic turn-based RPGs from the past, but with a completely isometric format that honestly makes the experience even better. It's one of those hidden gems on the Play Store that many people have never heard of, but it's definitely worth giving it a try. This is definitely one of the games with the best story on our list, and it's also a very underrated RPG. Let's talk about MEGS Monster. In this game, your main goal is to protect Maggie, a little girl who somehow ended up in the world of monsters. You don't really know how she got there. One really interesting thing is that you play as the main character who's already at the maximum level and can defeat enemies with ease. However, there's one thing you absolutely can't do: let Maggie cry or scare her. If that happens, it's game over. The gameplay features an isometric pixel art style that feels very much like a classic RPG. I've heard the story is incredibly emotional, and that's one of the main reasons why it's worth playing. Very different from the other Oceanhorn games, Oceanhorn Chronos Dungeon takes the series in a completely isometric direction, and we're going to talk about it now. Unlike the previous games where you're searching for your father, this one is basically a traditional dungeon crawler. You'll explore a dungeon, level up your character as much as possible, and of course try to make your way out. One of the game's biggest features is that you control 4 characters at the same time, and you can switch between them whenever you need to. Each character has unique abilities that you'll have to make good use of. Another really interesting thing about this game is that you can play with up to 4 players, even though it's a completely offline game. If you like Diablo and want to try something similar but in an offline format, this might be one of the best options. Let's talk about ONIRO. ONIRO is basically the evolution of anime RPG. Do you remember that game? The gameplay here is relatively simple. You start inside a dungeon and need to defeat monsters while trying to survive. However, this game takes the character progression system to another level with a huge variety of stats and abilities that you can customize. I'm talking about attributes that allow you to change things like your character's magical armor or even poison resistance. Even though the gameplay itself is quite simple, the deep stat system is what makes this game almost perfect. If you enjoy extremely complex RPGs, this is probably one of the best options you can find on the Play Store. Honestly, this is one of the most unique games on our list. Let's talk about a very forgotten game called ROGUEHEARTS. To be honest, I don't know much about the story of this game, and from what I played, it seems like it doesn't really have one. We're talking about another fully isometric dungeon crawler, but with a very unique gameplay style. That's because it's also a strategy game where you move your character across tiles while the enemies move in the same way. However, the most surprising thing is that after the battles, the game turns into a more traditional RPG experience. Honestly, I've never seen a gameplay style like this before, and it's a very innovative game on the Play Store. To be honest with you, I still need to understand this game's story. Let's talk about Dark Light, the Light of AIIN. Honestly, this feels like one of those games where the story isn't the main focus. The gameplay is what really matters. That's actually the reason I bought it on the Play Store. The gameplay is really good and is definitely one of the game's biggest strengths. The graphics are pretty minimalist and have a style that really reminds me of roguelike games. But with character progression, that's much more in line with a traditional RPG. I still don't know much about this game, but it looks very promising. I'm really excited to play it and see how it turns out. My friend, did you know that there is an original Diablo hidden on the Play Store? Its name is DEVILUTION X. For those who don't know, the first Diablo eventually became almost like lost media, and someone managed to transform this game into an Android version. So yes, this is basically the first Diablo, but in a remastered and improved version designed to run on more powerful phones. Honestly, this is an extremely high quality port that is completely free on the Play Store, and if you've never played this game before, be prepared because it's much more hardcore than it might seem. But of course, let's remember that we're talking about a game from the early 2000s, so you can expect a very challenging experience. And this game is simply one of the best if you're looking for something extremely deep where you can decide almost everything about your character. Let's talk about DROVA, Forsaken Kin. The best part of this game is that you don't play as a legendary hero or a chosen one who's destined to defeat powerful villains. Instead, you feel more like an ordinary person just trying to survive in this world. You can build your character however you want, choosing your class, attributes, skills, and even the choices you make throughout the game. You can become a great hero or simply play as someone who just wants to make money and live their own life. The game gives you plenty of different options and a huge open world to explore, and it's completely up to you to decide which path you want to follow. This time we're going to talk about 2 games at the same time, Epic Conquest 1 and Epic Conquest 2. There is also a third game if you want to check it out, but that one isn't isometric, it's completely 3D. The stories of the first 2 games are mainly focused on knights and kingdoms. In the first game you play with 2 characters, while in the second one you play as Claire, a warrior who wants to become the greatest knight of all. This is a game that gives you a lot of freedom to explore the map and build your character. Even though the game has a story, it still allows you to explore the world and play at your own pace. Many people don't know this, but this is one of the first RPGs that was released on the Play Store Store, and it's also one of the most famous ones even today. KITARIA Fables is a port that originally came from the Nintendo Switch. It's not very well known because it's a less famous port, but it's definitely a game worth knowing. In this game, you play as a warrior from the village of cats. Yes, all the characters in this game are animals. You control one of the few warriors capable of defeating the powerful villain who is turning peaceful monsters into terrifying creatures. Just like a good Nintendo-style game, it has a cute visual style and very fun combat. One thing that many people don't know about this game is that it has several different systems, and one that really stands out is the farming system. You can plant crops, harvest resources, and sell your items, but of course it still remains an isometric RPG. This is definitely one of the most fun games on our list. Let's talk about a game called BLOOMTOWN, a different story. This is a pixel art isometric RPG that looks absolutely beautiful. Honestly, the visuals are one of the best parts of the game. In it, you control Emily, a character who goes on vacation to her grandfather's house only to discover that the town is being taken over by demons. She joins forces with other children to fight against these demons, and that's where the gameplay really begins. It might sound crazy, but this game is an incredibly well-made turn-based RPG. You'll need to defeat demons, solve puzzles, and interact with many different adults throughout the story. One really cool thing about the game is the contrast between your character's life during the day and at night. During the day, she's just a normal person, but at night she enters the sewers to battle demons. What's even more impressive is knowing that this game was created by just one person. Let's talk about Caves of Lore. The game is relatively minimalist, at least when it comes to its graphics, but one thing it does really well is expand its content through a huge amount of character customization. And the idea of the game is that you start with just one character, meet some NPCs in a large city, and eventually recruit other characters to join your team. And the game doesn't focus on having a huge story, but instead offers many different gameplay possibilities so you never get bored. Its combat system is basically a tactical RPG, but you actually control your characters inside dungeons and even while exploring cities, and even with fewer than 1,000 downloads on the Play Store, it's definitely a game worth discovering. This game is so innovative that it's honestly surprising it's still relatively unknown on the Play Store. Let's talk about Children of Marta. This game is a mix of roguelike and RPG. You play as the Bergson family who are responsible for protecting a great mountain and keeping the corruption under control. However, everything goes wrong and the corruption spreads out of control, so you'll play as different family members, each with their own unique gameplay style. Even though it's an RPG, it also features roguelike elements. You'll need to upgrade your characters as much as possible and gradually unlock the entire family to make it all the way to the end. Without a doubt, the combat is the best part of the game. One really impressive feature is that it supports offline co-op, even though it's a completely offline game. On Android, there are many games similar to Pokemon, and this is another one that is completely unknown. Let's talk about CHRONOMON Monster Farm. The game also has a lot of farming elements, since you receive a farm from your grandfather and start taking care of it. However, the biggest difference is definitely the Pokemon-like creatures. Of course, they have a different name here, but they are basically as monsters that you can collect both to help you manage your farm and to combine with other creatures. I think the biggest difference is that you can actually control these monsters in different situations, especially when solving puzzles. Well, the game wasn't a huge success, but it's a very complex experience and definitely worth trying. This is a game that has an unofficial port hidden around the internet. It's definitely worth looking for it. Let's talk about CrossCode Mobile. In this game, you play as a character who becomes trapped inside an MMORPG that they were playing, and now you need to find a way to escape and return to the real world. I personally really like the visual style of this game. It's isometric, but at the same time it uses pixel art, which gives it a unique look. And despite what many people might expect, the game actually has a really good action-based combat system. Not only that, but it also has a great story for you to follow with a style that feels very similar to anime. It manages to entertain you in both ways. If you like Zelda, this is definitely one of the best games you can install on your phone right now. Let's talk about AIROHEART. I would say the game even has a tragic story where you eventually have to fight against your own brother who has gone to the dark side. The game features several different elements, like especially puzzles that feel very similar to Zelda games. Of course, throughout the journey you'll also need to talk to NPCs and basically find a way to defeat your brother. Many people say this game is like a Zelda with a different style, but honestly I think it's more like an original game that just happens to be very similar. The game is relatively simpler, but it's the kind of experience that you can spend a lot of time playing. Let's talk about ARCANE VALE. In this game, you play as a character searching for a great treasure left behind by your father. The problem is that you don't know exactly where it is. You can explore all of your father's lands, which are huge, while also talking to NPCs to discover hidden secrets and even things your father never told you. The gameplay is an action RPG that feels a lot like The Legend of Zelda, but with several different mechanics, especially the game's survival elements. The game isn't very famous and has fewer than 1,000 downloads on the Play Store, but it's definitely worth checking out. This is definitely one of the most complex games on our list, and it's also very underrated. Let's talk about Ash of Gods. This game has an extremely complex story. To give you an idea, the story is much more focused on the city being invaded by monsters than on any specific player character. One thing that proves this is that your character can actually die, and they can be replaced by any other NPC you meet along the way. Besides that, the story gives you many different choices that can lead to completely different endings, and as you can see, the gameplay is an extremely complex tactical RPG. The game was very successful on PC, but on Android it didn't receive as much attention and many people ended up not buying it. Ninth Dawn Remake is an RPG set in a massive open world filled with dungeons to explore, and we're going to talk about it now. To be honest with you, I wasn't a big fan of the game's graphics. I found both the visuals and the gameplay a bit unusual. However, there's no denying the game's quality, especially if you're looking for something more complex. There's so much content in this game that it's hard to cover everything in just 30 seconds. But honestly, what it lacks in graphics, it makes up for with its depth, complexity, and the huge variety of items you can use to build your character however you want. On top of that, it's a fully open world RPG with different ways to develop your character. Like I said, it wasn't really my type of game, but a lot of people absolutely love it. And those were some of the best isometric RPGs on the Play Store. I hope you discovered a new game to try out. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite, and I'll see you in the next video.